She needs a date to her best friend's gala. He wants to settle down. Can they get past their hang-ups to see that they should be together? This is the premise of The Accidental Swipe by me, Y.M. Nelson. This steamy contemporary romance features Jason and Fortune, two people who've given up on love and are urged to use an online dating app to find someone. When they find each other, the attraction is undeniable, but their jaded outlooks on love based on past emotional hurt may keep them from getting together. The Accidental Swipe releases on July 25th, 2023. Go to ymnelson.com for all of the latest details. This is the Nerdy Romantics Podcast, and I'm your host, Y.M. Nelson. Our intro song is called Feeling of Sunlight, and it is by Dano Songs. You can find it at danosongs.com. The Nerdy Romantics Podcast is all about the intersection between nerdy pop tropes and romantic books, book reviews, talks with authors, and romance tropes. This is episode 1, and in this episode, we are going to talk romance audiobooks. This is actually the reason why I wanted to start a podcast, because I listened to my first audiobook, which was More Than Crave You by Shayla Black. I highly recommend that audiobook, which is narrated by Christian Fox. And I intended to do a Goodreads book review on it just for that, but I realized that the whole romance audiobook experience needed a little bit more backstory, I guess, from me. And a little bit more maybe commentary from me. So one of my best friends, actually, we trade or talk about romance novels that we read and that we like and that we recommend. And we've lent a couple to each other over the years. But last year, she sent me a text saying, I've listened to an Audible book you might enjoy. I don't think it will be free, but I'm loving the narrator on this one, because we actually use the lending library. He's socially awkward, and I believe it. It's a bit repetitive at times, but I still really like it. So I already had this novel on my to-be-read list. More Than Crave You by Shayla Black is the novel that we're talking about. And I asked her if I needed to listen to it versus read it. And she basically said, yeah, I needed to listen to it. So I did get the book and listen to it. And holy moly, how about Christian Fox, everybody? I really liked the book in general. I like the More Than series by Shayla Black. This was the first book that I'd ever, we'll just say, consumed by Shayla Black. And it made me go back to listen to the whole series. And I am waiting to get the next audiobook in the series which I think at this moment is book 5 or 6, about the audiobook experience. So I've kind of had this experience before this particular audiobook with another book by another author, not romance. And I found it a little bit distracting. I found it a little bit hard to get into with that particular book, that particular experience. But with this novel, and I think it had 2 things going for it. One, it was a romance novel, so it was really entertaining for me. I love reading romance novels as an escape. I love writing them to live vicariously through my characters. I just love love stories. You know, they have happily ever afters, or at least happy for now. And isn't that what we all need in life, huh? So I thought that this had this going for it, but also B, the narrator is nice. Shall we say? Christian Fox is good at what he does. And not just because he's narrating this pretty steamy novel. Shall we say it's erotic romance? I'm gonna say it is. It's definitely steamy for sure. So I would warn everyone or caution everyone. If you're listening to this one and there's kids in the room, you probably need headphones, or kids in the car. I would not listen to this with kids around. So first thing I noticed about the audiobook experience, especially as a writer, is that I was able to get my escape feeling without putting on my editor hat or my writer hat, which really helps to just enjoy a book for what it is. I am the type of person that when I see a typo or when I see something that is obviously wrong with sentence structure, that it kind of hangs me up on that particular item, whatever it is. And no book is perfect. Every book that I've ever read, I think, has something wrong with punctuation, a typo, or some spacing, anything. And so listening to an audiobook, especially one that's romance, which is where I like to escape. I love the escape of romance, is a really good thing, right? Just listening to it and not have to be hung up on something as a writer. It really helps me to enjoy it. I don't feel the immersion factor that I feel sometimes when I read, but with some books, you don't need that immersion factor to enjoy it. And I feel like this particular book was, and all the other ones in this series, was one of those where I didn't need that immersion factor. I really enjoyed the book, and I really enjoyed the narrator. So let's go to the narrator. More Than Crave You by Shayla Black, and the More Than series is narrated by Christian Fox. And he has to do a lot of voices in this series. I believe there are, at this point in time, there are 4 siblings in this particular family of this series. And those 4 siblings obviously at some point are going to have an HEA, so they have spouses. And these are heterosexual couples. So there are female voices, there are male voices, and all of these voices have to be distinct. The book that I read, More Than Crave You, is, of course, the fourth in the series. So this is the one where you have to do probably the most voices, because you hear from all of the siblings, you hear from all of their spouses or love interests at this point. And so there's a lot of voices going around. I have no idea how this man did all these voices and kept all these voices, but with a few exceptions in some of the other books, the voices are pretty much the same throughout. Like there's a distinctiveness for each one, and you know who's talking even without the dialogue tag. It's really amazing how he's done all of these voices and kind of made them feel authentic to these people. I feel like I get another whole sense of who they are, even outside of course, what you picture in your head as you're reading or imagining these people in this situation. You kind of have this picture in your mind of who these people are. And then when you hear their voices, or their voices as voiced by Christian Fox, it kind of gives you that next level. It gives you a more complete picture of who these people are. And it's really authentic to me. The second thing is, if you've never heard a book voiced by Christian Fox, I highly recommend that you find one and listen to it. He has a very sexy voice. I mean, amazingly sexy. So I fell in love with Evan, of course, the moment that I heard this voice, right? And like my best friend said, he's socially awkward. Evan is the main character of More Than Crave You, by the way. He is socially awkward. He's a tech geek. And so he's very logical, but he's also very masculine. And that combination is really cool. I'll interject here just a small plug for one of my new favorite shows, Good Trouble. And I am actually binge watching it right now. And in that show, there is a character that runs a tech empire who coincidentally happens to be named Evan. But if you've seen that show and you've seen Evan in that show and you've heard how he kind of talks, I just immediately, it just clicked. The immediate connection right there just clicked. Now, the picture of Evan in my mind from More Than Crave You is not the same as this guy, but I don't know, somehow the persona clicked. But anyway, back to this book. Christian Fox's voice was so sexy and so compelling for me, and I'm such a research kind of junkie that, of course, I went and tried to find this guy's photo and or to find out more about Christian Fox. I did that. I did a little search. I talked to actually a couple of author friends who have read romance novels and have written romance for a little bit longer than I have. And one of them told me that there are two narrators that narrate romance that do not show who they are. And a lot of people want to know who they are, but they don't show who they are because it's really not about what they look like. It's about the voice. And I totally get that. It doesn't mean that I don't want to know what this guy looks like or if this guy can record my voicemail on my phone. Yeah, that's probably going to be an expensive task. But anyway, moving on. So the experience with the whole narrator thing, and especially with Christian Fox. So I also, in my research with looking for more books that have been narrated by him, of course, I've come across a few that have been jointly narrated by Christian Fox and another narrator, usually a female narrator. I started listening to one, and I wasn't impressed. But what that showed me is that sometimes it's really about matching the caliber of the narrators. So if something is dual narrated, that the female, or in this case we're talking heterosexual couples, so we're talking male female voices. That's not to say that this can't happen in other instances, but just a disclaimer about that. So the female voice in the book that I was reading didn't really connect like like Christian Fox's voice did. And part of it is she sounded a little stilted. And so I think a lot of it has to do with character, with level of kind of being comfortable behind the mic, or being comfortable with reading a book that in an engaging way. And there's something about the way that Christian Fox reads that has this kind of engaging, even the fact that this guy is socially awkward, and so he kind of has these, his manner of talking is stilted in a certain sense, but it's authentic. And then, of course, as he's thinking, he's not thinking in a stilted way. So making those kind of changes in voice and making kind of an engaging voice is pretty essential, I think. And you have to have, if it's going to be two narrators, that other narrator has to be up to the task to keep you pulled in. So the last thing for me with the audiobook experience, especially with the romance audiobook experience, I should say, is the NSFW factor. So for those that don't know what NSFW means, that is text speak for not safe for work. This particular book happens to be erotic romance, or super steamy, I guess, but I think erotic. So definitely open door, definitely gonna have certain language, definitely gonna be graphic. So one, I will say, but I did say this in my review on Goodreads, that it's not for kids. So I would not listen to this in the vicinity of your kids. I wouldn't even listen to this if my mom were in the car with me. Why? Because there's a certain embarrassment factor, right? I'm not going to listen to a book and there is open door sex and my mom is right there. I'm just going to be super embarrassed. Who isn't going to be super embarrassed? And I am no longer a child. I'm an adult, and I'm still not going to do that. There's that. But I will say this. I mean, if you've never really seen me or don't know me, I am a Black woman. This is an interracial romance between a Black woman and a white man. And of course, as a Black woman, just this particular, from my experience and just from my living on this earth for the years that I have, we tend to talk back to stuff. We'll talk back to movies. We'll talk back to TV. We'll do it. Well, I will. And I definitely talked back to this book. It made laundry fun, which I hate laundry and I hate folding laundry. It was great to have this on in the background while I was doing other things, but it was just great to have an engagement a little bit, if you will, because again, like I said, I'm a Black woman, I talk back to things. It was great to have an engagement with a text, because I'm going to talk back to it anyway, but it's also kind of fun listening to it. I've listened to this book 4 times, okay? Yes, I admitted it. But the second time around, I kind of talked back to the book knowing what was going to happen, and that was kind of fun. So it was kind of fun and kind of engaging, which is not something I would have thought from an audiobook. Not something I thought I would have done. So it's kind of like having a little bit of dialogue myself with this particular book. It was interesting. It was nothing like I'd ever thought that it was going to be. I didn't think this was going to be something I didn't think I was going to listen to this book more than once, but I found that I have, and I'm not going to say that I'm not going to listen to it again, because I probably will. And I'm actually looking forward to the next book, which I think the next book is out, but it's not an audiobook yet. That will be book 5 of the More Than series by Shayla Black. You can find me online at ymnelson.com, where I'll have all of my books, all of my blog posts, all of my book reviews, and other really cool stuff. Please subscribe to the Nerdy Romantics podcast wherever you get your podcasts, so you can get the latest episode as soon as it drops. Thanks again for joining us, and see you on the next episode.